January 28th, 1986. A day that started with hope, excitement, and ambition, and ended with heartbreak. The Challenger disaster was a defining moment, not just for space exploration, but for humanity. It wasn't just about what went wrong during the launch, but how the world responded in the critical 24 hours that followed. NASA's Challenger shuttle, part of the ambitious Space Shuttle program, was set to carry 7 crew members into orbit, including Krista McAuliffe, the first civilian teacher in space. It was meant to be a moment of triumph, a symbol of innovation and inspiration.
Not yet. Maybe when I'm strapped in and those rockets are going off underneath me, there will be. But space flight today really seems safe. We had a good example.
Teachers nationwide tuned in, eager to show their students the culmination of months of hard work. Krista McAuliffe represented every dreamer who dared to believe they could touch the stars. But at 11:39 a.m., disaster struck. Challenger disintegrated in midair just 73 seconds after liftoff. To those watching, it seemed impossible. Was it a technical glitch, a tragic accident, or something far worse? The initial reaction? Disbelief. For those at Cape Canaveral, cheers turned to stunned silence. For millions watching it live at home or in classrooms, it was a collective moment of horror. As debris rained down over the Atlantic Ocean, NASA's Mission Control erupted into a flurry of activity. Telemetry data was immediately scrutinized. Initial thoughts centered on an engine failure, but within hours, all eyes were on the solid rocket boosters. Let's break it down. The shuttle's solid rocket boosters, critical for the first 2 minutes of the flight, had shown concerning signs in previous missions. Specifically, the O-ring seals, designed to prevent gas leaks, had been flagged as vulnerable in cold weather. The temperature that morning, just 36 degrees Fahrenheit, far colder than any previous launch. Engineers at Morton Thiokol, the company responsible for the boosters, had expressed serious concerns about launching in such cold conditions. But the decision to proceed wasn't just technical, it was political. As NASA engineers worked behind the scenes, the world outside was reeling. News networks broke into regular programming, replaying the explosion over and over. Anchors struggled to find words, and viewers were left in shock. For teachers, especially those in classrooms with students who idolized Krista McAuliffe, the day was especially painful. How do you explain something so tragic to children? Many educators turn to impromptu lessons on bravery, resilience, and the dangers of exploration. Meanwhile, makeshift memorials began to appear across the country. In Concord, New Hampshire, Krista McAuliffe's hometown, the community gathered to mourn their local hero. That evening, President Ronald Reagan was set to deliver the State of the Union address. Instead, he postponed it and gave one of the most memorable speeches of his presidency.
It's all part of taking a chance and expanding man's horizons. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
Reagan's words struck a chord. While honoring the fallen crew, he also reaffirmed America's commitment to space exploration. It was a delicate balance, mourning the loss while inspiring hope. By dawn of January 29th, recovery teams were already combing the Atlantic for debris. Each fragment held a potential clue to what had gone wrong. Meanwhile, NASA's internal investigation team worked through the night, piecing together telemetry data. The Rogers Commission, a high-profile investigative body, was announced within hours. Its members included astronaut Neil Armstrong, physicist Richard Feynman, and former Secretary of State William Rogers. It was clear early on that this wasn't just a technical failure. It was a failure of communication, culture, and decision-making. NASA's relentless drive to maintain its schedule had overridden critical safety concerns. The Challenger disaster was a turning point, not just for NASA, but for humanity's relationship with space exploration. In the years that followed, NASA overhauled its safety protocols, learning painful but necessary lessons. And the 7 brave souls aboard the Challenger? Their memory lives on. not just in memorials, but in every astronaut who steps into the unknown, and every student inspired to reach for the stars.